After being hospitalized for 3 months, I woke up from an open heart surgery to repair a congenital heart defect at the age of 6. That surgery allowed me to live an active life where I get to participate in sports. My face and lips wouldn't turn purple or have difficulty breathing after only a short run. Most importantly, this operation gave me back a lot of time because I had a real shot at attaining an average lifespan rather than to die young. When I was discharged, the doctor told me, "Son, you've been given another chance. Make the most of your life." That taught me a sense of purpose and urgency. I wonder, if you were given another shot at life, what would you do differently? For a while, I felt invincible because I thought medical treatment could always give me back more time. But that would change 10 years later. One day at the age of 16, I was driving in my car. A classmate pulled up next to me, and I noticed his car was getting closer and closer to mine. So close, I thought it was going to hit me. And suddenly I heard a loud screech. I couldn't see my classmate anymore. I made a U-turn, and I noticed his car had crashed into a tree. Shortly after, the paramedics arrived and pronounced him dead at the scene. 2 weeks later, I attended his funeral. As his casket was being lowered, I thought to myself, that totally could have been me. I'm not invincible. My life could end in an instant without warning. I'm just lucky to be alive. That realization shaped everything. So let me ask you the previous question in a different way. What if the doctor told you you had less than 1 year to live? Would you have any regrets? How would you value your relationships, your personal finances, and most importantly, your career? Because research tells us an average person spends 90,000 hours, or a third of our waking moments, over a 40-year period just working. That excludes overtime and commutes. We have the movie The Titanic or The Avengers Endgame. Who's watched either of these movies? Woo, right? Many of you. Who's watched it more than once? Wow, many of you. More than twice. Wow, so many. It's a 3-hour-long movie. You must love it a lot. Imagine watching either of these more than 30,000 times. That's equivalent to how much an average person spends working in their lifetime. Well, then how do we spend our time wisely? Standing in front of you today on borrowed time after surviving 2 near-death experiences shaped my career. I learned that my career is not about going to school, getting a job, seeking higher pay, more prestigious title, and then retire. Rather, my career served as important chapters of my life story, a story that I get to craft according to my values and purpose in pursuit of alignment. It allows me to wake up excited every day, living my values of freedom, achievements, and no regrets. But like most stories, there are roadblocks, and mine is no exception. While I encountered 2 major career roadblocks, I used them to craft my story. It was March of 2009. I went to work at one of Asia's largest hedge funds at the time. My boss announced the company would be shuttering and the whole team would be laid off. I was taken aback because I thought if any company were to survive the crisis, it would be us. And for me personally, somebody who is hardworking, driven with a pedigree, how can I ever get laid off? But boy, was I wrong. And I learned this painful lesson at the age of 30 years old. Well, suddenly my career just flatlined. It gave me reflections of that day at 16 when things could just end in an instant. While this was the first major career roadblock I faced, I used the time to take a step back, to look around. And somehow, it didn't feel like a roadblock, but rather a checkpoint for me to ask, is the path I'm on still aligned with my values and purpose? What was missing was freedom. Freedom to control my own fate and achievement of truly owning something. To align myself, I liquidated almost everything I had at the time to start a hedge fund. Even though 6 years later, I resigned from this business I co-founded because the direction changed after it got bigger. I left stronger, wiser, and aligned. Because I learned to manage risk, especially that of my own capital, a skill that will prove invaluable for the rest of my life. I also learned that life is a numbers game. When my business partner and I were fundraising in 2009, people were telling us, you guys are too young. You've never done this before. Times are challenging. It's a bad idea. We probably faced 49 rejections in a row. But it was that 50th investor who gave us that one yes. And that was all we needed to get started. So the more no's we get only means closer to that one yes. And finally, this chapter of my life would serve me well when I encountered my second major career roadblock, which happened 8 years ago when I moved to Singapore to assume a senior finance position. Not only was it senior, it was cushy, decent pay, prestigious. Sounds like the ideal job, right? Who thinks this is a job they may want to have? Right, many of you. Well, but I wasn't excited to go to work because it didn't align with my values and purpose. This coincided with the birth of my first child. I was actively looking at preschools, but I couldn't find one that resonated with me. The more schools I visited, the more I kept telling myself, really? That's it? Come on, I can do this better. So I had to decide either to place my child in a school knowing I wouldn't be satisfied and then go to work knowing it didn't align with what I was looking for, or I could create a school. I decided to create a school by acquiring an existing school, convert it to my liking, so I could put my child there. Eventually, I resigned from this senior finance position, knowing I may never get such a good job again. And again, many thought it was a bad idea. Anthony, what are you doing? Why would you choose to sacrifice a steady and decent paycheck and venture into the early childhood education industry where you have absolutely no prior experience? And they're right, I did it. I was a first-time father, still trying to change my kid's diaper without getting into a mess. Not to mention, I would have to risk my own capital, not get paid, but this time as a sole breadwinner. Nevertheless, I dedicated the next 5 years doing a roll-up by acquiring mom and pop schools and converting them into a profitable chain of preschools. During this journey, we employed 50 incredible women and looked after hundreds of children, including my own daughter and my own son. And eventually, that business will be acquired. So this chapter of my life is complete, but it's only complete because it's a continuation of a previous chapter, which was starting a hedge fund at 30, when many thought it was a bad idea, because I learned to avoid many of the mistakes I'd committed and amplified on the things I'd done well in. Moreover, while many viewed this as a risky and daunting career pivot, I treated it as a necessary realignment of my values and purpose. From these two very different career roadblocks, I learned that we're a lot more capable than we think. Many of us believe whatever we know is on our resume, this piece of paper that is backward looking. We often associate our identity with our work. Ironically, those who are senior often feel more stuck because they tell themselves, I've been doing the same thing for so many years. What else can I do? I don't want to start from scratch. Who has heard of the term imposter syndrome? Many of you. If I were to challenge you to throw your resume in a trash can, now I hand you a blank piece of paper to write down what you are truly capable of, your values, your skills, and your aspirations. I reckon that piece of paper and your resume will look very different. That's when you realize you have a lot of transferable skills and that you can become much bigger than you've ever dreamed of. The second thing I learned is that those who are successful and those who could have been more successful are actually very similar. We all share limited time. Not one person can buy an extra minute. But the key difference is that those who are successful dedicate their limited time to work that aligns with their values and purpose, while those who could have been more successful choose not to. And that's why success is a choice that anybody can make. And finally, a story without roadblocks is actually quite boring. Imagine you and your team are now standing at the summit after this arduous hike. Panting, still catching your breath. As you slowly start to inhale the fresh air, slowly start to settle down. You start to enjoy this panoramic view, the beautiful blue skies, the white clouds. You start to appreciate the might and the roar of the waterfall, just like the smoke that thunders. You then look back at the path you had taken, the windy roads, the ups and downs. You check out the cuts in your elbows and knees from having fallen. You reflect on the moments you wanted to turn back because it was so challenging, yet you persevered. To your right, there's a path that's flat and straight. In fact, there's a third you could have just driven. Which path would you want to have taken? Which path would genuinely make you feel deep inside, yes, I did it? Now imagine that journey being a chapter of your life story. Your friends, family, and children are reading it. Which path would they find more memorable and inspiring? Will they find those cuts in your elbows and knees as signs of weakness or resilience? Many of us face career roadblocks. But if we imagine that these are stepping stones towards climaxes of our life stories, that will make our lives so much more fascinating. I'm confident if we possess these principles, regardless of what doors are presented in front of us, the more doors we walk through, eventually we will be proud of the story that we've crafted for ourselves. Let me ask you, have you been spending your limited time on work that aligns with your values and purpose? If not, the next chapter is for you to write. Before you walk out of here today, ask the person next to you, how will you craft your next chapter? Thank you.